Hi, welcome back to Waxing On. It's Monday, Family Day in Ontario, President's Day in the USA. Hope you're all having a great day. Today we're going to do another one of my first episodes, my first big band album. And it's significant because this is really what inspired me to get involved in big band music and really, I guess, was my first exposure to this style. Now, originally, this is back in the late 60s, early 70s. I'm going to say early 70s. Our one major network here in Canada was CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, and they had a show on called In the Mood. And I believe Rob McConnell was leading the band. And it was a musical show. We had band features, we had vocalists. A year later, there was another show called Bandwagon. This time, Guido Basso, a trumpet player, was leading the band, but essentially it was the same group, right? It was the same band, and it was the same format. A lot of musical numbers, a lot of vocals, some great stuff. And this was on every week. I got a chance to see this. It was just excellent. Now, this band, and today we're talking about Rob McConnell and the Boss Brass. Here's my first album, the Boss Brass 4. I'll talk about it in just a moment here. But this band was made up of studio musicians from Toronto. Not unlike what Gordon Goodwin did in the 2000s, where he took a lot of the LA musicians, put together his big band. That's the way this one was. It wasn't really a touring band, although it did some touring, but it was a band they put together from all the, again, the session players that got together to play these tunes. Now, this album, I think there was one previously. It's on the CTL, the Canadian Talent Library. Really not a big commercial label. You can see Rob playing valve trombone. This is my first exposure to valve trombone. This was before I knew anything about Bob Bookmeyer or anyone like that. So this was unusual when I saw it. I'm just going to read you a little synopsis off the back of the album here. And they had done a live concert just the week before at the Seraphim Club in Toronto. They used to do a regular routine there. Okay, this one just says, the arrangements, all by Rob McConnell, are skillful blend of jazz, pop, and rock, original enough to stimulate the excellent musicians playing them, palatable enough to assure wide public enjoyment, and swinging enough to contradict anyone who would argue that the era of the big band has ended. Now, all true. I mean, these musical arrangements are so accessible that everybody could get into them. They weren't heavy jazz. They weren't very complicated chord progressions and really complex. This was something, music for everybody, to expose them to big band music. And the charts on this album were very similar to what they used on the TV show. The songs run 2 minutes, 2:39, 2:59. 156, very short, like what you'd expect in a little clip it on a television program. We had a 30-minute program. We were doing all these little songs in between. So they aren't long, stretched out solos. They're not long, epic tunes. That comes later on, and I'll talk about this in another few weeks maybe. Boss Brass did a couple of direct-to-disc albums that were really landmarks at the time. This was back again, late 70s, maybe early 80s. We'll look at them maybe a little later, but that's where they really stretched out and did more as a band. This is very a commercial recording. Now, give you some idea of the tunes that are on here. This one of my favorites, just a great I'll Be Your Baby Tonight by Bob Dylan from the John Wesley Harding album. And it is an excellent big band tune. If you get a chance to hear that, you won't be disappointed. This is some nice arranging he's done here. A couple of original Canadian tunes, one by Rob McConnell called Take Me, another by Rich Dodson, who was with Stampeders for a while in Canada, Monday Morning Choo Choo. We've got Odds and Ends by Bacharach and David. We got a tune here by Carlos Antonio Jobim. We've got Herbie Hancock's Dolphin Dance. Slipping a lot of real jazz stuff in here, but in a way that was very accessible for people. Morning, Noon, and Nighttime 2, Hurting Each Other, another big pop tune. Canadian Pie, Rob McConnell's take on American Pie. A lot of very similar sounding riffs in there, man, but nice touch. You've Got a Friend, the Carole King tune. James Taylor had a big hit with that. Nice arrangement that he's got on here. Gospel Rock, and Never Been to Spain by Hoyt Axton. Now, a good cross-section, popular music, popular tunes, some original songs, some jazz classics in there. He's mixing it all up together, but in a way that really appealed to the audience. Now, let's look at who's playing on here. This is an early version of the Boss Brass, so some of the players like Sam Noto and those kind of guys aren't on here at this stage. But here we're looking at Terry Clark on drums, sax section, Mo Kaufman. Big hit with Swingin' Shepherd Blues back in the late 50s, early 60s. I mean, that was probably his big thing. Moved back to Toronto, and he's doing session work there. We got Jerry Toth, Eugene Amaro, Rick Wilkins, Gary Morgan, Al Stanwyck, Arnie Tchaikovsky, Bob Day, and Guido Basso in the trumpet section. Arnie Tchaikovsky, one of the best lead trumpet players I can remember. When you hear him playing on here, it's excellent. Anything you heard on CBC, hey, those remember some of those old Hockey Night in Canada themes where there was that high trumpets at the end. That's Arnie with some of those notes out. So trumpet section, we got Al Stanwyck, Arnie Tchaikovsky, Bob Day, and Guido Basso. Trombone section, Bob Livingston, Butch, and it's either Watanabe or Watanabe. I'm not sure how he pronounces that. Russ Little and Ron Hughes. Ed Bickert, fantastic guitar player. We've talked about him on the show before. Just excellent. Great session man as well. I mean, Don Thompson on bass. We got Peter Appleyard playing vibes. Now, we haven't talked about Peter Appleyard before, but another great Canadian jazz player. I mean, it's just an all-star cast he has in here. Some names that became very familiar with other musicians. As the band progressed, he got even more big-name people playing along with them. They all wanted to be part of this band. It was just great. I had a couple of chances to see them live. Excellent. Excellent band to see live as well. But for first time out, this one I thought was an excellent choice because it did give you a very accessible way to get into the band. It was tunes I remembered, tunes I knew. When I bought it, they didn't have a lot of albums out. They were just getting into the recording and getting started, but I'd seen them on television a number of times and knew this was something I wanted to follow. Just an excellent group out of Toronto. Never going to go wrong. A streaming network, yeah, they got lots of Boss Brass on there. Pull some up, give it a listen. Guido Basso, one of the great flugelhorn players of our time. I mean, people go on and, yeah, we got Chuck Mangione, that was the main instrument. Clark Terry, great flugelhorn player as well. I've heard lots of great trumpet players try and play flugelhorn, but it never really worked. And I'm going to take a chance here, stick my neck out and say Maynard Ferguson, I heard him play flugelhorn. Didn't sound like flugelhorn. You hear Guido play it, it is just such a sweet, creamy, mellow tone of what he gets in there. There's not many guys that can play flugelhorn as well as he does. Well worth checking out. Streaming networks, hard copies available. No shortage to find some of this great music by this great band. That's it for today. My first Boss Brass album, Boss Brass 4. See you on Tuesday when we're back with another first. Till then, everybody take care. Stay safe. Thanks for stopping by.